Alrighty then, I want to do a little demonstration here on making some one-to-one Nomad scale parts, also using cardstock as templates for creating patterns and using those patterns to create parts, as well as how to use a couple of basic tools. This, for instance, is a machinist scale. Now, I've got used to using a machinist scale a lot more than virtually any other thing when it comes to drafting and or measuring, but I've also been using this template, which is used in drafting for drafting circles of different diameters, etc. This can also be used as a diameter or circumference gauge to find out what size, say, diameter one of these parts is. For instance, I need to know what is the diameter of, just a second, what's the diameter of the semicircles that come out of this Nomad part. And what I come up with is that it is almost perfectly 1 1/4 inches right there. So all I've got to do is use this gauge to trace out some circles onto 80,000 styrene, which is just about this thickness. I'll cut out those circles, cut the circles in half, and use those for details on this box. This is really nothing more than a couple of boxes that are going to make up the whole of a detail part that goes on the deck on the top of the Nomad, on the main body. Now, this is a piece of the 1/6 scale Nomad, but while cleaning it up and working on it, I decided I needed to change a couple of details. Thus, I wanted to do this first, rescale everything down by 1/6, and then create some new details to replace a couple of the details on this existing master. So, here you go. Use the scale to get your diameter, get the length and size of your box. Make sure this matches up with the blueprints. Excuse me, I got the original blueprints from Max Mills. He worked on them very diligently, but I found a couple of errors and we worked together to correct said errors, and this is the result. This is one of the results. This is going to be a finished part. The main issue was around the main body base plate, which I've already shown in previous videos. The length and width and size aspect ratio of the part was not correct. Neither was the placement of the holes, but that's only because Max did not have the references that I had available to me. At any rate, let's move forward with this. I'll show you what this looks like as soon as I get the patterns cut out and the cardstock model folded. Okay, for about the last week or so, I have been doing nothing but molding and casting. Now, I was molding and casting some things for Evan's Lighting to make new lighting kits. After I finish up this week's endeavors, I'm going to be working on brand new electronics for several different ships, refits, original series, etc., etc. We'll be working on a lighting kit for the Aries as well. So, I wanted to wrap some of this up. I get asked all the time about the status of the 50-inch refit, so I wanted to show some of the masters, the detail parts, and the casts. Yes, it is moving forward. I know it's been 8 years, but there was a lot of stuff that went on in between, not the least of which was losing control of the masters for 2.5, almost 3 years. At any rate, here are some of the details. You can see the detail of each one of these parts, and I want to make sure that I get in there close and allow it to focus for you to see. Now, here is a clear cast piece that goes in behind this piece, which is part of the forward leading edge of the sensor dome, sensor array area. And let's see, here is the sensor dish. Now, I did have a clear part, but it has since started to yellow on me because of being in the UV light. So I'm going to have to cast up a brand new one to show. And I also want to go ahead and dye it, which I will do a demonstration on dyeing clear cast parts in this video or in the next video. It all depends on how much video I end up with at the end of this week. Now, as you can see here, here's a fresh cast out of one of Scott Einoff, aka AW Studios molds. He sent me the molds down here, and I'm doing a job for him. Thank you, Scott. These are both masters. One is less detailed than the other, and I need to get a real good mold of this, but I've got to do some minimal reconstruction work on this. I'm not really happy with it 100%, so I've got to sand it down and recut the lines the way they should be. Then I'll get this in the mold. As you can see here, this is one of the rear shuttle bay cabs. Now look at the detail on that. This is a master, and it took weeks to work this and smooth it and shape it and maintain all the details. But this ship is going to look phenomenal. I just can't even begin to tell you how detailed it is. We spent years working on this ship. Part of the nacelles here. Now I've cast all these parts. I'm going to go ahead and paint up some new parts and get the nacelles under construction. The pylons are done. Most of the engineering hull is done. I've got to work on finishing up the spine. Here you can see the impulse crystal. Now, does that look sharp or what? That is going to look so beautiful. Look at the size of it. As you can see, you've got this little thin detailed cage that goes over this clear part. Now, if this was sanded up and hit with some 600 grit sandpaper and then the cage put back on it and some blue light shown underneath it, that would just look beautiful. Now, I've got a good mold on the torpedo deck, torpedo launch tubes. The truth is though, I'm just really not happy with it. I'm going to make a new 2-part mold off of this master, at least a 2-part mold. And I did want to show some of the fine details on this cast piece that goes on the rear. Well, you know where it goes, on the back lower part of the nacelle. Now I'm going to show some of the construction at some point on a buildup I'm doing. I'm just really reticent to show it until it looks really good, because there are so many nitpicking rivet counters out there that, well, they've always got something negative to say, you know the type. At any rate, here's a look at some of the 50-inch refit details. Woohoo! All right, let's have a quick look at the 1/6 scale Sounds and Lights Nomad that's getting closer and closer to being done every day. As I said, I'm going to repair and replace some of the details on the main deck, top part of the Nomad. These are the 2 clear cast halves, as well as the brass. I sent Elliot the pattern that I made up, and this is a 1/6 representation of the pattern for the main body that shows where the lights blink. As you can see, here are the masters for the head part, the lower portion, the top hat. Here are a couple of casts. They need a little cleanup. I'm going to finish this up. I've already got all the molds made. I'm going to use the actual masters to create the prototype to show in video. I've got a couple of small changes, nothing major, and this will be done. So we will see this again very soon, walking and talking. Well, maybe not walking and talking, but winking and blinking and talking. How about that? 1/6 scale Nomad. Woo-hoo-hoo.